Oftentimes I hear students applying to MD-PhD programs and then using applications to MD programs as a fallback of sorts. And I want to talk a little bit about that because I hear it so often that MD is a backup, but in my personal opinion, applying to an MD program when your goal is to get into an MD-PhD program is not a backup. There are two reasons. The first of which is when you apply to MD-PhD programs, sometimes they will give you the option to say, okay, if I'm rejected from the MD-PhD program, I would still like to be considered for the MD program. The thing is, some of these programs don't review MD-PhD and MD applications in parallel. So what might happen is your application is being considered in the MD-PhD pool, and then it gets rejected, and then it gets deferred to the MD pool. By the time the MD folks get your application, it might be really late in the cycle, so who knows if they ever read it at all, since admissions to most medical schools are rolling. Now, some schools do it in parallel, and it's really hard to tell just based on information on the website, so maybe your applications are sent to both the MD-PhD and the MD programs for consideration at the same time, then yes, maybe it would work. My point being, even if you check that box that you would like to be considered for MD if you get rejected from MD-PhD, I don't think it works out a lot of the times. And so I wouldn't consider that as a valid backup. And now on to my second point, why I don't think applying MD is a valid backup if your goal is to apply an MD-PhD program. I do not necessarily think that someone who is a very strong MD-PhD applicant is simultaneously a very strong MD program applicant. Is that true for some people? Absolutely. But I know for me, I would not have been considered a strong MD applicant. And I personally think that's because the emphasis on what to prioritize during your pre-med years is a little bit different depending on whether you apply MD-PhD or MD. For the MD-PhD folks, we can deprioritize the clinical experience a little bit and just focus on research. I personally think I had probably less clinical hours than a lot of people who got into Columbia for medical school, but that's because I got into the MD-PhD program and my research was good and sufficient. So yeah, these are just my general thoughts, and obviously when I applied, I only applied to MD-PhD programs. Honestly, in my opinion, there's no such thing as safety schools when it comes to medical school admissions or even MD-PhD admissions. All we can really do is put our best foot forward in all the application prep and everything leading up to the application cycle.